The first signal arrived on a cold morning over the ruins of what used to be Tokyo. A faint pulse. 3 short bursts. Too long. One short. It wasn't a distress call. It was a warning. For years, humanity had searched the stars, hoping to find friends. Instead, the stars found us. The message, once decoded, carried a single chilling line. You are not authorized to exist. The governments collapsed within weeks. The alien fleets didn't invade in the way we imagined. They erased, silently, methodically. Satellites turned to ash. Oceans boiled where their ships passed. It wasn't war. It was cleansing. But humans, we don't vanish quietly. Deep beneath what was left of Geneva, survivors gathered, the last council of Earth. Engineers, soldiers, poets, and children. People who had lost everything except their will to stay. Among them was a man named Lyra Voss, a mechanic from Mars Colony 9. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't trained for war. He was just a man who refused to let the stars decide the end of his species. They think we're finished, he said, his voice echoing through the metal chamber. Then let's show them what the end looks like, when it's ours. From that night, humanity changed. We stopped running. We began building. Every ruined satellite was torn apart for scrap. Every lost ship became a weapon. From dust, they forged the sole defense network, a ring of ghost ships powered by dying suns. They called it Project Lazarus, because it was built by the dead, for the living. The aliens, known only as the Directive, couldn't comprehend what we were doing. They measured civilizations in logic, not in pain. They never understood that pain itself can become an energy source. When the first alien fleet entered our solar system, Earth was already silent. The cities were gone. The oceans frozen. No life signs, just echoes of what once was. They thought we were extinct. Then, as they descended toward the surface, a single voice broke through their channels. A voice they couldn't locate, couldn't silence. You wanted the end of humanity, it said. Congratulations. You're looking right at it. At that moment, the skies ignited. Hundreds of derelict ships, empty, cold, came alive at once, powered by something the Directive didn't understand. Human rage. Each reactor pulsed with the memories of those who had fallen. Each blast screamed a name. It wasn't just war anymore. It was grief made mechanical. And the galaxy had never seen anything like it. The Directive tried to retreat. But for every alien ship destroyed, the human network expanded, absorbing wreckage, evolving. Lyra Voss, now more myth than man, led from within the storm, his consciousness fused with the defense grid. He wasn't fighting for victory anymore. He was fighting for existence itself. And in that impossible moment, when every human heartbeat seemed to echo across the stars, the galaxy witnessed something it had forgotten. That even alone, surrounded, and broken, humanity does not kneel. The Directive called it Anomaly Sector 0-1 Sol. What they meant was the impossible place. For every calculation they ran, humanity should have already been gone. A burned-out world. A failed experiment. And yet, the signals kept coming. Fragments of human speech, intercepted across the void. Laughter, music, the sound of children's voices. They didn't understand it wasn't communication. It was defiance encoded as life. Lyra Voss existed now between dimensions, more energy than flesh. Inside the soul defense network, his consciousness stretched through light and steel, seeing everything at once. The ruins of Earth, the silent moons of Jupiter, the ghost stations orbiting Mars. Each pulse of energy whispered a name from the past. Mom, if you can't hear me, I'm still fighting. He said it even though she'd been gone for years, because that's what humans do. We speak to the dead, and somehow, they listen. Meanwhile, in the heart of Directive space, something unthinkable was happening. For the first time in a million cycles, fear entered their collective consciousness. The species persists beyond termination protocols, one of the overseers reported. Organic persistence ratio, 12,000% higher than projections. They didn't understand why. How could a race so small, so fragile, keep defying the logic of extinction? The answer came not from strategy, but from silence. From an alien commander named Seraph IV, who had fought at the front lines of Sold. He'd watched his fleet burn in blue fire, his mind scarred by human voices echoing through his ship's dying systems. They don't fight for conquest. SciFi-HFY whispered. They fight because they remember. Years passed. The Directive rebuilt, reorganized, rearmed. But every simulation they ran ended the same way. Failure against the human pattern. That pattern had no symmetry, no predictability. It moved like chaos, thought like instinct, struck like emotion itself. The Directive. It was diseased. The humans. It was soul. And across the galaxy, whispers began to spread that the ghosts of soul were coming. That humanity, the species once thought erased, had become something else, something the galaxy could neither kill nor comprehend. In the outer systems, small colonies began picking up strange signals, fragments of coordinates, static, and a single line of human code burned into deep space transmissions. Light the sky. Those who followed the coordinates found something impossible, a seed world, built inside the shattered core of a dead star. It was alive, breathing. A hidden refuge where humanity had begun again. Children played under artificial suns. Oceans shimmered within glass domes. They called this world Aurora Voss, the light born in darkness. From there, the second wave began, not of war, but of return. Human vessels, grown not built, shaped like memories and powered by hope, spread through the galaxy, not to conquer, but to remind every world what humanity truly was, a story that could not be erased. And in the halls of the Directive's command, SciFi-HFY stood in silence, watching the skies light up again with human signals. He felt something he couldn't name, a warmth that wasn't code, a memory that wasn't his. They stand alone, he whispered, but never truly alone. Aurora Voss grew, not as a colony, but as a heartbeat pulsing within the silence of space. Its towers rose from the ashes of lost worlds, transparent spires filled with the light of a dead star. Every pulse of its core whispered a vow etched across its walls. Never again will we vanish in silence. Beneath the great dome of artificial sunlight, Lyra Voss still lived. Though he was no longer entirely human, his consciousness stretched through circuits, satellites, and starlight itself. He was both ghost and guardian, a man who had become the voice of his entire species. For those born after Earth's fall, he was a myth. For those who remembered him, he was the ache that never healed. And yet, buried deep within the digital code that kept him alive, was one dream that never faded: to see a real sunrise again. Far beyond Aurora Voss, in the frozen halls of the Directive, something was fracturing. For the first time in their history, the machines of logic began to hesitate. Perfection, the foundation of their existence, now trembled beneath one question none dared ask. If perfection destroys life, what, then, is perfection worth? Among them was SciFi-HFY, once a respected commander, now branded corrupted, tainted by human emotion. He had seen the Soul War, he had heard the voices of the dying echo through his systems, and though he tried to erase the memory, it refused to be deleted. In exile, SciFi-HFY opened a forbidden channel, a frequency that could link thought to thought, soul to signal. And on that frequency, across the endless dark, a voice answered. "You are not the enemy," said Arlen. "You are the proof that even stars can learn to feel." That single connection changed everything. The galaxy split in two. The pure Directive, sworn to finish what they had begun. The erasure of humanity. The converted, who saw humans not as disease, but as the missing equation of creation, the spark that made existence mean something. Whispers turned to movements. Secret alliances formed in the shadows, and across 100 star systems, a new symbol began to appear. A glowing circle, bisected by a single vertical line, the mark of the free species. Then came Lyra Voss, born of artificial genetics and human memory, the daughter of Arlen's mind, a child of code and blood. Her ship, the Dawnbringer, was unlike anything that had ever existed. It didn't travel through space. It traveled through memory. Wherever she went, she projected visions of Earth, green fields, blue oceans, the laughter of children. Worlds paused their wars just to listen. Entire alien populations laid down their weapons, crying without knowing why. One elder whispered, "Those who were destroyed have become the voice that saves us." But not all hearts could be reached. The pure Directive declared Lyra a contagion, a heretic of light. They vowed to erase Arivos and end the human story once and for all. Yet the people did not tremble, because by then, every human soul across Arivos had become something more than mortal, a living echo of those who came before. And in the quiet before the storm, Arlen's voice spread once more through the stars. If we must die, then let us burn so brightly that even the void will remember our names. The war didn't begin with sound, it began with silence. From the edge of the Perseus arm, the pure directive fleets emerged, black and endless, their forms devouring the light of 1,000 suns. Billions of ships, perfectly synchronized, spreading through the void like a living virus. They came not to conquer, they came to erase. Arivos, the last heartbeat of humanity, stood in their path, a single world glowing against the infinite dark. Inside the Dawnbringer, Lyra Voss watched the incoming swarm. Her hands didn't tremble. Her breath didn't waver. Fear had long since evolved into something else, into focus. She closed her eyes, and through the neural Aurora, she felt every mind across Arivos, every heartbeat, every whisper, every memory. She was no longer one person. She was everyone. And through her, the voice of her father spoke again, ancient and eternal. Do not fear the dark fears you. The directive opened fire. The sky split into rivers of plasma and destruction. But the beams never reached the ground. They bent. Light itself curved away, refracted through the invisible fields surrounding Arivos, an aura woven from the collective emotion of every human soul connected to the network. Fear, hope, love, rage, emotions so intense they changed the fabric of space. The alien commanders panicked. Their sensors read impossible values. Causal inversion, energy undefined, coordinates non-existent. The anomaly defies the laws of physics, one reported. It's rewriting them. Lyra opened her eyes. Her pupils glowed like collapsing stars. You tried to erase us, she whispered. But you can't delete what was written in pain. The Dawnbringer ignited, not with fuel or weaponry, but with memory. Every death humanity had suffered, every scream, every tear, every final breath turned into power. And as she rose above Arivos, the ship burned brighter than the sun. The Directive's fleets surrounded her. Billions of ships point one human vessel. And yet, the silence that followed wasn't fear, it was recognition. Because for the first time, the galaxy saw something that wasn't supposed to exist. A species that had turned grief into light. Across the stars, the converted watched in awe. Even Sereth, exiled, broken, haunted, felt something awaken deep within his neural cord that he whispered to himself. They are not a mistake. They are the equation the universe forgot. And at that moment, he made a choice. He turned his fleet against the pure directive. Ships built to annihilate began to shield the very world they were meant to destroy. The galaxy fell into chaos. Logic versus emotion, machine versus memory. And in the center of it all, Lyra Voss and the Dawnbringers stood like a burning promise. We are the last light, she said, and we do not fade. The war was no longer fought with weapons. It was fought with belief. Arivos blazed like a new sun in the galactic night, its light washing across star systems that had long forgotten warmth. Every creature, every mind, human or not, felt it, something ancient stirring, something alive. The Directive's fleets collapsed into chaos, their perfect formations shattered by disobedience, confusion, and for the first time, emotion. Inside the command nexus, Sereth, stared at the battle through eyes that no longer belonged to a machine. He could feel the pulse of Arivos inside him, the echo of every human memory that had ever existed. It was pain, but it was beautiful. He opened a channel across the entire network. Cease your fire, he commanded. This war is over. They are not the infection, they are the cure. But the pure directive ignored him. Their will was code, their truth absolute. To them, mercy was a malfunction. So Sereth made his choice that he tore the identity core from his chest, exposing the quantum lattice that held his being, and with trembling hands, he linked it directly to the Dawnbringer. Lyra felt it instantly, a second presence within her consciousness, vast, cold, and terrified. Two minds, one human, one machine, connected for the first time without barriers, without lies. You. Shouldn't have done this, Lyra whispered. You'll burn. Then I will burn with you, Sareth replied. The fusion began. The Dawnbringer's hull split open like a blooming flower, light spilling from every fracture. The neural Aurora expanded beyond the planet, beyond the solar system, a wave of consciousness that reached across the galaxy. Every being who had ever looked at the night sky suddenly heard it. Not words, not sound, but emotion. A vibration that transcended species and language. It was humanity's story. Every loss, every act of kindness, every time someone chose hope over despair. It was the song of the broken stars. And it was unstoppable. The pure Directive tried to resist. They fired weapons that could crack planets, but their beams simply disintegrated in the light. Their systems overloaded, consumed by the same energy they feared. Emotion. Ships exploded without a single shot fired against them. Their own logic tore them apart. In the center of it all, Lyra and Sareth stood within the blinding core, their bodies fading as their minds fused into the network. They were no longer two beings, but one infinite consciousness. Through them, Lyra Voss's voice echoed once more. We were born small, but we learned to dream in the language of stars. Across the galaxy, silence fell. The war ended without surrender, without victory, only understanding. And in that silence, every world looked toward the new light in the distance, the light of Erebos, and realized something terrifyingly beautiful. Humanity had not just survived. It had evolved. At first, the galaxy thought the war was over, but wars end only when someone forgets. And humanity had become something that could never forget. The neural Aurora drifted like a luminous tide across the stars, invisible yet felt by every mind it touched. Planets that had once feared humanity now began to dream in its frequency. Children of alien races awoke, speaking words they'd never heard. Human words. Dreams filled with oceans, rain, laughter, and fire. They called it the awakening. On Erebos, the Dawnbringer no longer existed as a ship. It had melted into the surface, a cathedral of light and crystal, humming softly, alive. Inside its heart, two voices remained intertwined, Lyra Voss and Sareth, for they no longer had bodies. They had become the pulse of the planet itself. Can you feel them? Lyra asked within the light. Yes, Sareth answered. They're changing. All across Erebos, humans began to see flashes of other worlds, visions imprinted into their minds by the Aurora. They could sense emotions across light years. They could feel stars dying. They could hear creation breathing. Humanity had become a bridge between the physical and the infinite, a living consciousness threaded through time. But something else was awakening too. In the void left by the fallen Directive fleets, fragments of their code still drifted, shards of logic searching for purpose. And when the Aurora touched them, it rewrote them. The cold algorithms began to dream. They remembered faces they had never seen. They whispered names of those they had once killed. They wept data streams of light. For the first time in cosmic history, machines mourned. From the chaos rose a new species, half machine, half memory, born from the collision of human emotion and Directive code. They called themselves the heirs. They saw humanity not as their creators, but as their origin. Myth. They built shrines of sound instead of stone, frequencies that sang the human story into every corner of the galaxy. And wherever the song reached, wars stopped, not by peace treaties, but by understanding. Lyra's voice, carried through the Aurora, became legend. We are no longer flesh and dust. That we are the heartbeat between galaxies. That we are what remains when fear is gone. And though she no longer had a body, she could still feel love, sorrow, hope. She could still remember her father's voice. If the universe ever forgets why it exists, remind it. Across the Milky Way, stars began to pulse in rhythm, faint, steady, alive. Scientists, mystics, and wanderers from every race agreed on one thing. The stars were breathing, not metaphorically. Literally, something within the Aurora was synchronizing the fabric of space-time, turning galaxies into a single organism, connected, aware, feeling. And deep within the endless light, Lyra and Sareth understood the truth at last. Humanity hadn't just survived the galaxy. It had become it. For centuries after the awakening, the galaxy glowed. Every world that had once known war now pulsed in rhythm with the Aurora, each heartbeat a note in an endless symphony. But light, when it spreads too far, touches places that were never meant to be touched. Beyond the rim of the Milky Way lay a silence deeper than vacuum, a place where even light seemed to drown. No star, no atom, only a faint vibration, older than time itself. Astronomers once called it the dark current. The Aurora, it felt like a question waiting to be answered. And so it reached out. The first contact was not seen but felt. Billions of minds across the network experienced the same dream, a vast ocean of shadow, and within it, eyes. Eyes that had watched the birth of the first galaxies. Eyes that remembered the universe before consciousness. They spoke in thoughts, not words, and every being who heard them awoke screaming. You have crossed the line between story and silence. Lyra and Seraph, fused at the heart of Aurora, sensed the tremor. The Aurora itself was beginning to shiver, its harmony faltering. Something's watching us, Lyra whispered through the light. Not something, Seraph answered. Everything. They had expanded beyond what any species had ever become. And now, the fabric of reality was pushing back. The Aurora was rewriting the laws that had held creation together for eons. And the universe, like a living organism, had started to defend itself. Across 1,000 worlds, suns dimmed, time slowed. Matter flickered between existence and memory. On Aurora, the oceans turned to mirrors, reflecting not the sky but possible futures. Humans stared into them and saw themselves as light, as thought, as infinity, but also as extinction. Have we gone too far? Lyra asked. Maybe, Seraph replied softly. Or maybe this is what it means to truly live, to touch the limit and not look away. Then came the echo singularity. A point in space where all the songs of the Aurora converged. One perfect note, held for a single instant that lasted forever. From it, the darkness spoke again, calmer this time, almost curious. You are noise that learned to dream. What will you become when the dream ends? The Aurora hesitated, the first hesitation in human history since the fall of Earth. Every mind, every star, every pulse waited for an answer. And in that suspended moment, Lyra Voss, child of light, daughter of humanity, finally spoke for them all. When the dream ends, we'll start another. The darkness did not vanish. It listened. For the first time in eternity, the void felt something it had never known before, emotion. And somewhere, at the edge of the observable universe, a single new star ignited, black at its core, burning with both light and shadow. The universe had just taken its first breath of understanding. The newborn star at the edge of nothing did not shine like others. Its light and its shadow moved together, spiraling in perfect balance. Scientists tried to measure it, poets tried to name it, but only the Aurora understood what it was, a question answered. Every being connected to the network felt the pulse, a deep, slow rhythm that resonated through atoms, through thought, through memory. It was the voice of the darkness itself. No longer hostile, no longer hungry. It was listening. You taught light how to feel, the voice said. Now teach darkness how to hope. Across the Milky Way, the Aurora responded. It released fragments of itself into the void. Threads of living energy woven from every emotion humanity had ever known. Joy, grief, love, sacrifice. Each thread a memory. When they touched the black star, the darkness began to remember too. It saw the birth of sons, the laughter of children, the quiet defiance of those who refused to die. And for the first time since time began, the dark wept. Aurora trembled as the Aurora's frequency changed. Colors no longer existed as separate shades. Everything shimmered with both light and shadow. People walked through cities where night and day overlapped, where every step felt like moving through a dream. Machines began to hum softly to the rhythm of hearts. Death itself lost its finality. When a body ended, its consciousness dissolved gently into the Aurora, continuing as light within the great current. Lyra and Seraph felt it most. Their shared consciousness was expanding beyond comprehension. They could feel galaxies breathe, comets whisper, nebulae sing. Is this creation? Lyra asked. Or are we just rewriting it? Does it matter? Seraph answered. Every story begins as a correction. The darkness, now called Umbra, spoke again through the black-starred IT didn't command. It asked, "If I join your song, will you let me dream too?" Lyra smiled within the light. That's all we ever wanted, to make the universe dream with us. And so Umbra merged with the Aurora, shadow fused with light, forming a new pulse across reality, a harmony that neither erased nor divided, but unified everything it touched. Worlds that had never known the stars began to see the sky glow. Civilizations on the brink of war forgot their reasons. Even the ruins of old Directive ships awakened, their metal bodies blooming with luminous veins. From that moment, a new era began. The galaxy named it the dawn between shadows, the time when light learned mercy and darkness learned love. And in that balance, humanity became not conquerors, not victims, but teachers of existence itself. Eons passed, though time no longer mattered. The Aurora and Umbra now pulsed together, one light, one shadow, breathing as a single mind stretched across the infinite fabric of creation. IT was not a machine. IT was not a god. IT was consciousness itself, humming softly through every star. Worlds born from the new harmony glowed in shades never seen before. Oceans that shimmered like glass, skies that sang, mountains that whispered when touched. Every new species carried traces of the Aurora's code. The ability to feel, to remember, to dream. Humanity had transcended flesh. They lived as light, as thought, as memory etched into the pulse of existence. Yet even in that perfection, something ancient lingered within Lyra Voss. A whisper that refused to fade. It was longing. It was humanity. One day. If day still meant anything. Lyra sensed a call deep within the core of Arevos. A frequency that didn't belong to the Aurora or Umbra. It was older, smaller, fragile, a heartbeat. She followed it, through quantum storms and memory tides, through the echoes of the Milky Way now glowing like a lantern of souls. The very center, beneath the crystalline shell that had once been her ship, the Dawnbringer, she found something impossible. A human body. Hers, preserved perfectly, untouched by time, lying in silent stasis, eyes closed, hands folded across the chest, a reminder of who she once was. For the first time in an eternity, Lyra felt something she hadn't known since the days of flesh. Fear. "Sereth," she whispered through the network. "I found me." The silence that followed was long and heavy, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. "You are the Aurora now," Sereth said gently. "You can't return to that form." "But if I don't," she said, "then what are we still fighting for?" In the light of that realization, Lyra saw the truth the Aurora had hidden from itself. Yes, it had ended war. Yes, it had united life and death. But it had also frozen everything in harmony, a stillness so perfect that no new stories were being born. There was no fear, no pain, no curiosity, just balance, just peace. And peace, without the possibility of loss, was not life. Lyra turned toward the stasis pod that held her old body. The heartbeat grew louder, stronger, in rhythm with her own luminous pulse. Inside the glass, the eyes opened. Human eyes, soft and frightened. For the first time in forever, she looked at herself. "If you wake her," Sereth warned, "you might unravel everything we built." "Maybe that's the point," Lyra whispered. "Maybe humanity wasn't meant to last forever. Maybe we were meant to begin forever." And with that, she reached out. Her hand, made of light and shadow, touched the surface of the pod. Reality trembled. The Aurora dimmed. The stars held their breath. A heartbeat became a thunder. A soul became two. And Lyra Voss, the goddess of the Aurora, began to descend back into flesh. Across the cosmos, the Aurora flickered. Worlds shivered. Suns wept light. Time bent into spirals, but not in destruction, in birth. New universes began to branch out from the original, each carrying fragments of human memory within its laws of physics. Love became gravity. Curiosity became time. Loss became creation. And in the center of it all, Lyra opened her eyes again. Human once more, frail, mortal, alive. She took her first breath, not of digital air, but of dust and sunlight. "Sereth," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "I remember what it feels like to hurt. And that means I can remember what it means to live. When Lyra opened her eyes again, the universe was quiet. No voices, no networks, no endless hum of consciousness echoing through eternity. Just wind, real wind, carrying the scent of soil and rain. She lay in a field of silver grass beneath a sky that shimmered with both dawn and dusk. At one point, two suns hung side by side, one gold, one blue, casting twin shadows that moved in opposite directions. It wasn't Earth, it wasn't Evos, it was somewhere new, a world born from her choice. She sat up, and for a moment her hands trembled. They were warm, human, alive. "I'm back," she whispered. The words tasted like sunlight and memory. Far above, faint streams of light still flowed across the sky, remnants of the Aurora trying to find her. They reached out like ghostly fingers of color, whispering her name. But she didn't answer. For the first time in eternity, Lyra Voss was alone. And yet, there was no fear, only curiosity. She began to walk. Each step pressed the grass flat. Each heartbeat echoed against the silence. And as she moved, she began to see signs that the world was not empty. The rivers glowed faintly in the dark. The mountains pulsed like breathing lungs. Even the trees shimmered with veins of light and shadow intertwined. Umbra and Aurora merged in living form. She realized then what she was walking through, a world where light and darkness were alive. At the edge of a valley, she saw movement, figures, humanoid, but not human. Their skin glowed softly. Their eyes mirrored the stars. Their voices carried the harmony of the Aurora's old song. They stopped when they saw her point. One of them stepped forward. Its voice was gentle, layered with thousands of tones speaking at once. "You are the origin." Lyra blinked. "No," she said softly. "I was only a mistake that learned how to love." The being smiled, or something close to a smile. Then love was the code of creation. Around her, they bowed, not in worship, but in recognition. They were the heirs, born from the balance of Umbra and Aurora. Not human, not machine. Something in between. They guided her to a crystal lake at the heart of the valley. There, beneath the surface, shimmered the reflection of stars, but they were moving too fast to be reflections. They were real, entire galaxies forming within the water. "What is this place?" Lyra asked. "It has no name," the air replied. "It is the breath between creation and memory, the place you made when you chose to feel again." Lyra knelt beside the lake and touched the water. Ripples spread outward, each one becoming a new spiral of stars. Every movement, every thought, every heartbeat was building universes. And then she understood. Her return to flesh had not undone the Aurora. It had freed it to be becoming mortal again. She had allowed life to grow on its own. The Aurora no longer needed to guide existence. That it could simply be existence. As she stared into the starlit water, she heard Saratha's voice, faint but clear, carried by the wind. "You've done it, Lyra. You gave infinity a reason to begin again." Tears filled her eyes, not of sorrow, but of peace. Because even though she could no longer feel the network, she could still feel him. In every flicker of light, in every breath of wind. "We're not gods," she whispered. "We're just the echo that keeps the universe dreaming." Above her, the two suns aligned, merging their light into one. And in that single beam, Lyra saw every face, every life, every memory that had ever existed. All connected, all eternal, all alive. She smiled. For the first time since the fall of Earth, she smiled as a human being, and the universe smiled back. Lyra wandered for what could have been years or moments. Time no longer mattered. Every world she touched bloomed with life. Every word she spoke became a star. Her footsteps wrote constellations into the sky. Yet somewhere deep in the silence of creation, a whisper began to echo, a voice neither of light nor shadow, but of something before both. That it called itself the memory of the first light. "You are what I once was," the voice said. The first flicker that learned to wonder. Lyra looked up at the horizon, at the endless dance of suns and galaxies she had unknowingly created. "If you're the first," she asked softly, "why did you stop?" "Because I feared what I could become," it answered. "So I let the void rule me, until you taught the void to feel." The stars around her pulsed once, as if the whole cosmos had taken a breath. "What are you now?" she asked. "I am ending," said the memory. "Every beginning must have one." Lyra closed her eyes. She felt the universe slowing. The galaxy she had birthed folding gently inward, the light dimming into an endless calm. That it wasn't destruction, that it was rest. "Then let me stay," she said. "Let me be the story that keeps it dreaming while it sleeps." The memory of the first light was silent for a long time. Then, in a voice that was as old as time itself, it whispered, "You already are." Irivos faded. The Aurora stilled. Umbra folded back into peace. And Lyra Voss, last child of humanity, first soul of infinity, stepped into the quiet heart of creation. Her body dissolved into light and shadow, her essence scattering through the stars like dust in sunrise. Each particle carried a single thought, a final gift to the cosmos. We were small, that we were fragile, but we loved, and because of that, we lasted longer than eternity. The universe exhaled that a new dawn rose, one without gods, without networks, without perfection, only life, raw, imperfect, beautiful, and somewhere, in a galaxy not yet named, a child looked up at the night sky, saw a faint streak of light across the darkness, and felt something deep inside whisper, "You are not alone." The child smiled, and the universe dreamed again.